Hey there, I have a special endgame to show you today. It's a very nice study by a friend of mine and somebody that I know from my own club, the club that I was raised. I wasn't born there, but I was raised. This is the club in Shumen in Bulgaria, and his name is Petromir Panaiotov. Petromir is a strong candidate master, and I think his level should be a master one. But his real strength is making studies, and this is his latest effort. And I hope that this one is really going to win a big prize. So, Mr. Afek, if you're watching this one, make sure it wins the big prize, because it's a great thing to study. Okay, obviously white is, well, he is attacking the knight on a4, but there is a very limited number of pawns on the board at the moment, and at the same time, even though he is attacking the knight on a4, his knight on c1 is under attack. The most obvious thing would be to take here, but then black is going to take on c1 and it would be an easy draw. The good thing for white, however, is that he can move this knight away with the tempo. Logically, we would like to move it to b3, where it is defended, and it also takes away the a5 square from the black rook. But the problem with this line is that after rook c7, he is also attacking our knight in return, and even though we are winning a pawn with knight e5, whenever black goes back with the knight on b6, he is threatening to come on c2 and to attack our own pawns with the rook. And he is quite active. Also, our knight is hanging, and even the tactical tricks with knight c4 are not really giving us the advantage. Yes, we can take many times and we can regain the rook, but the problem is that black is becoming too active, and this activity in the endgame is usually enough to compensate even an extra pawn, even in a knight endgame. Although Butvinik once said that the knight endgames are very close to the pawn endgames. That's true, but still we shouldn't forget that the knight can be sacrificed for the remaining pawn and make a draw. Here, besides the move a5, also king g4 is very active, and most likely white has no chances of winning this one. Actually, objectively speaking, this should be a draw. That's why the right route is to go to d3. Now, black has to go rook c7 anyway, and he's attacking our knight. And once more, we have a site to choose where to give the check from, d6 or d8. We already know that knight e5 is nothing, so let's give the check from the d8 square first. Wrong, that's not the good one. After king c8, knight e6, rook e7 and rook a4, we are once again winning a pawn, and once again we are not winning the game, because there would be rook d6, very active rook, he is attacking the knight, the pawn, and after knight f2 there will be knight f4, knight e4 would be answered to check, king f2, knight e5, black is too active. This should end in a draw, even though white can play for a win and he can try this for a while, but in order to make progress he will have to trade one more pawn, and since these two are eyeing each other, this should end in a draw after that. So, say for example rook h3, knight takes h5, knight takes g5, rook h5, so he's just activating his pieces, and you can analyze it for yourselves, but you will see that this should be a draw. Then the other check, knight to d6 check. This is the right one, but what's the difference if he goes king c6? The difference is, okay, we can play knight e8. That's the big difference. We are attacking the rook and we are attacking the knight. If he goes for our knight this time, we are going to take 2 pawns instead of 1. First knight f6 and then rook a4, and that should be a win. Okay, we're still, excuse me, we're up a pawn, but that should be a win because we have an outside pass pawn and it is defended and it is protected by both our king, the knight, and it won't be easy for black to show that activity that he had before that. On the other hand, he has an ace in his sleeve, and this ace is the move knight c5. Give me your stuff in return. If knight takes c5 in this situation, well, then the problem would be that this rook just runs away, rook e7, and the 2 knights will be hanging. So that's why we need to react in a trickier way. And the trickier way is rook c4. We are attacking once again 2 things, the knight, the rook. He has to play king to b5, and then we can take on c7. much to the surprise, even for the computer who is suggesting some other stuff to take on c5 and to play the knight endgame. Knight takes c7, that leads to a pure knight endgame, 2 knights each and 3 pawns each. However, after this check and that check, all of a sudden it becomes apparent that this king is not feeling quite comfortable in the middle of the board. And things will get even worse for him after this maneuver, check. Once again, we shouldn't be greedy. For the pawn on a7 is after these moves, he's getting really very, very active. And that would be also a draw, but we should concentrate on this king. So let's go knight d6 check, make sure that this king doesn't have any more squares except for the one on e4, and try to bring this knight somehow to mate him. But wait, if we use this knight to try to mate him, he's going to escape, right? That's why we are closing that gap. We go d3. Make sure that he has no escape route. And after knight takes d4, we need to avoid the last little problem. If we go with the knight on a4, that would be a6, and after a3 and a5, we will be the one in Zugzwang. So we will have to move away the knight, and unfortunately he is not going to move first, after which we can checkmate him from here, if he moves away that knight, knight c3 checkmate. Or if he moves away that knight, we can checkmate him from c5. But we are going to do the knight move in the proper way, knight d1. And once again, we'll be waiting for his knights to make a move. If that one moves, knight f2. If the other one moves, knight c3. And the battle of the pawns is finally won by the white pawn. a6, e3, a5, a4, and he has to make a move. You choose which of the beautiful pictures you would like to see at the end. The one after knight c5, knight f2, or the one after knight b6, knight c3. In either case, the king is getting checkmated in the middle of the board by the two knights. And this is quite extraordinary and rare. And I hope that you enjoyed it just as much as I did. See you next time.